Until is kind of before an action. Until. So until something actually, it's before something happens, whereas soon as would be more after something happens. It's very, it all has to do with the time. So on yours, how long will Mr. Samash and Almaz play cards? They play cards until it is time for lunch, because lunch is going to come after. So up until lunch, it would be until. So if you wanted to use as soon as, you would say as soon as lunch is over, they will play cards.
After.
So be after. So until is be kind of before. Think of it as before, and as soon as would be after the action. And number 6.
How long will Ahmed stay with Mr. Samash? He will stay until his family arrive to visit him.
Yes. Good. And number 7.
When is Mr. Samash going to go to sleep? As soon as he visitor leave, he'll take his medicine and go to sleep.
Good. Yes. As soon as. I've got it down as soon as, until his visitors leave. So, yeah, so it's as soon as, so it's after the visitors leave. He'll take his medicine. So you couldn't use until his visitors leave. You would say, until his visitors leave, he won't be able to take his medicine, if you want to use until. So it changes the last part of the sentence. But in this case, it's as soon as his visitors leave. So is that all making some sense? And all? I think this next page is a little bit more challenging because it's each of these pictures has an action. Now the first one, so you see Charles putting his tag on. So the example here is, as soon as Charles arrives at work, he puts on his name tag. So in the example here, what we're having to do is put an S on puts. So you have to add a little bit more to the words than what appear here. So in this case, on the example it says arrive / put on name tag. Is that my phone? Oh, it is my phone, and I can't imagine who's calling me.
Maybe it's an original phone.
It's not that phone. I have these 2 phones, they drive me crazy.
International phone.
Yeah. Maybe it's not different.
Something important.
I think I get ghost calls or just random, I don't know who they are. Unless there's a name attached to it, an identifier. Do you have identifiers like the name that comes across with the number? I don't answer. Oh, yeah, so it's a call identifier. So that was just to me, a ghost call. Okay, so on number 2, the number 2 picture, well, let's go back to number 1 though. So it says arrive / put on name tag. So we need to fill in the other words that go to make that a complete sentence. So they did that up here, so they used as soon as Charles arrives, because Charles is the subject. So in this example here, we don't have a subject, so you take it from there and just add to the words. So let's look at number 2. Or do you have questions about the sentence from the number 1 example? It's clear? Pretty clear what we're doing? Okay, so on number 2, I'm going to write this up because you're going to tell me what to put in the sentence. So remember, we're using as soon as and until. So walk with Miss Hadley, or Halliday, time to deliver mail. There's probably a couple ways that you can write this. Do you want to write down your sentence, or do you want to tell me the words to write?
Tell you the
Tell
word
me
to
the
write.
words to write?
Yes.
Okay. So,
He walks with Mrs. Holiday.
I walk.
okay.
He walks with Mrs. Holiday until it's time to
Little child walk with Miss Holiday until time to deliver.
Mail.
Until it is
it is time
time.
to deliver mail.
Okay, so he. So instead of using he, because we know it's Charles, Charles. Yeah, we'll just use Charles. I'm going to try not to use my fingers. I end up with blue fingers after this. So we'll just use Charles here instead. Charles walks with Mrs. Halliday until it is time to deliver mail. Yeah, so if we could add to that too. So if Charles hadn't arrived yet, we could have said, as soon as Charles arrives, he will walk with Miss Halliday until it is time to deliver mail. So there's several different ways, but this is good. This is nice. It's to the point. So Charles walks with Mrs. Halliday until it is time to deliver mail. Okay, and the number 3.
Number 3.
Child reads to Mrs. Holiday until it is lunchtime.
Charles reads to
Mrs. Holiday
Until it is lunchtime.
until lunchtime. Charles reads to Miss
Until
Holiday
his lunchtime.
until
His lunchtime.
Until- you could put it is or just until lunchtime. You don't have to put the it is. Lunchtime is just
No.
no, yeah. So good. You guys are going through these really well. Okay, so 4. Stop reading, lunch is delivered.
John stop
Charles
reading
Reading.
Charles,
until
what's the next one? Charles,
lunch is delivered.
Charles will stop reading
Reading. As soon as.
as soon as,
Right.
Not will stop, shall stop reading.
as lunch is delivered. Okay, so Charles will stop reading as soon as lunch is delivered. Excellent. Excellent, okay. 5,
Charles talks to Miss Holiday until finish eating.
okay, so Charles talks with,
To talk to.
talks to or
Yeah.
talks
Talk with.
with. It could be either one. So if it's only him talking, it would be talks to her, talks to. But if they're having a conversation, it would be talks with. So it could go either talks
Either
with or to. Holiday until
Finish.
she is finished eating. It's a good thing they've got a big blackboard here, or whiteboard.
She
So
finished, not that she eat.
she's finished eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my writing's in. She's finished eating. Charles talks with or to Miss Halliday until she is finished eating. Another variation on that would be that Charles speaks with or speaks to. So talk, you could substitute speak if you wanted to for a different word. Speak, it would be more formal, like he's speaking, having to say something maybe more formal to her. Okay, and then number 6.
Chance goes home
Remember, we've got to use until or as soon as.
as soon as
Okay, so we're gonna start off with Charles. Charles, no, let's put it, Charles can or may go home. But let's use can. Charles can go home. So we have to put a word in there to complete the sentence, and that's can go home as soon as
As soon as Charles finished playing a game with Mrs. Holiday.
Yeah, Charles
Say
can.
until.
I'm sorry, what was that, Charles? So Charles can go home as soon as he finishes playing, or until. Charles can go home as soon as, yeah, he
He finished.
finishes
finishes playing
playing
game
a game with Miss Holiday. So Charles can go home as soon as he finishes playing a game. Or you could use Charles should go home, because maybe it's the end of his day and or Charles needs to go home as soon as he
I
finishes.
think number 6 is can be used until. Can I do that, teacher?
Can you use until in that
I think
sentence?
it's more makes sense.
Okay, so Charles can go home, okay, so Charles cannot go home until he finishes playing a game with Miss Halliday. So that's a good point. So Charles, but it's gotta be, it's again goes to that time thing. So home until he finishes playing. And playing and a game with Miss Halliday. I'm not gonna write, do you want me to write it all out, or you got the idea? Finishes playing.
Playing.
Yeah, playing
And number 5 there
a
is dash.
game with Mrs. Halliday. So that's a different, Charles can't go home until, but can't, that's, changes the whole thing, the whole usage. Can and cannot. So can is after the playing, but can't means not, cannot is before, which would be the until. It's kind of, you know, one of those,
Teacher number 5, sir. Teacher number 5, until she finished eating number 5.
number 5.
Yeah,
Charles talks
There is no use. She finished eating.
until she is finished eating. Charles talks to his,
Until
oh,
she
wait, wait,
finished.
what
No, it's-
was number 5? Yeah, Charles talks, yeah, Charles talks with Mrs. Halliday until she is finished eating. Or talks to,
No, I mean, it's, the sentence is no is verb to is miss. This is right. She finished eating
until she is finished eating would be before. Charles talks with, so what, how would you write it? How would you say it?
until she finished eating. No is, no is.
Oh, she, oh,
No is.
she had, no, this, oh, I'm sorry, yes, it should be has. I'm writing in,
She had.
she has, yeah, has finished eating. Thank you. Oh,
Four is the correct.
she
Is it?
has,
Yeah.
has right
Yeah,
here.
Yeah.
Lunch
Is.
is.
Yeah.
She has finished eating.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah. Charles talks with or to Miss Halliday until she has, Charles talks with Miss Halliday until she, no, I think the ED is wrong, until she finishes eating,
Yes.
until she finishes eating. Is that,
Not
that,
has.
so Charles talks with Miss Halliday until she
Finish.
finishes,
She has
until
she has
finishes,
finished, yeah.
she finishes eating. Okay, so Charles talks with Mrs. Halliday until she
She
finishes,
finishes, yes.
so Charles talks
Yes.
with, or Charles talks to Miss Halliday until she finishes eating. Yeah. Does that make sense? Does
Yeah,
that sound
teacher.
better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Better.
So one little word, one or two little words can kind of, well, but you know, sometimes we start talking and we talk fast and words come out different than what they would come out if you put it in a sentence, written sentence. So that's good. Charles talks to Miss Halliday, talks to her until she finishes eating. Any other corrections up there, that things that you change? So we'll start back up with number 2. Charles walks with Miss Halliday until it is time to deliver mail. I think that's pretty straightforward. And then number 3, Charles reads to Mrs. Halliday until lunchtime. And then number 4, Charles will stop reading as soon as lunch is delivered. Number 5 still bugs me. There's still something, I don't know. Charles, let's see, Charles talks to Miss Halliday. Charles talks to Miss Halliday until she finishes eating. No,
She
yeah, that's, I
will
think
finish eating.
eating finishes. She finishes. Charles talks to Miss Halliday until she finishes her food or finishes eating. Yeah, I think that's good. And number 6, Charles can go home as soon as he finishes playing a game with Miss Halliday, or Charles can't go home until he finishes playing a game with Miss Halliday. All set? Got
Teacher,
as soon as and until?
teacher, if we say that as soon as Mrs. Halliday finish eating, Charles start to talk to Mrs. Halliday.
As soon, and which number is that? Which?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Yes.
So as
We
soon
say
as,
that as soon as Mrs. Halliday finishes eating,
uh-huh,
Charles start to talk to Mrs. Halliday.
yeah, Charles can start talking.
Yes.
Yes, good, yeah,
Start
you can
talking.
turn them around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so Mrs. Halliday, let's see. When Mrs. Halliday finishes eating, Charles can talk to her.
Yes. Charles
When-
start talking
when-
to her.
Well, we're not using until or as soon as though,
Yes,
in
as soon
that
as.
example.
Yes.
So, to use until or as soon as, so we, as soon as Miss Halliday finishes eating,
Eating. Shall start talking to
Charles
her.
can start talking
Talking
to her.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do you want me to write that down, or, no, got it, okay. But yeah, different ways. So, it says here they want us to talk about what does Charles do for his volunteering? What are some of the things that, is everyone done with this? Do you want me to erase it? Erase or not erase?
There is.
You read the
Erase.
share.
Erase, okay. Remember when they had chalkboards? Some of you too young, the chalk,
Yes.
the blackboards with the chalk on it?
Yeah.
Really scratching. Okay, so, what are some of the jobs that Charles does? It says here, write sentences about Charles' volunteer activities. Well, I think we've already written sentences about what he's done. So it wants us to go now into what are some of the volunteer activities and maybe identify those. So it looks like he,
I think he worked for senior citizen. It's
he
like,
volunteers
housing.
for,
How
so
housing
Charles
children.
volunteers.
No.
Nursing home,
No,
maybe.
volunteers in a nursing home.
Nursing home.
Okay, so some of his duties include, and then we can list what they do. So some of his duties. You want duties means, you want duties? Okay. Some of his duties include the following. That's the following, and then put a colon. We'll put a colon there because we're going to list some things. So what would be one of the things that we could identify that he does? He reads to people, or reads to patients.
Teacher, I don't understand. Why volunteer have S, it means only child.
Here,
Duty
Volunteers,
is
why
a verb.
have
It's a verb.
It's a work.
volunteers?
Verb.
volunteers,
It's a
because
verb.
he's,
Word in the.
it's,
Verb.
he's working, he's doing something.
ว่าเติม S ได้
กิริยา
It's-
เป็นกิริยา
A volunteer can be a noun, volunteer can be a
It's not
noun,
verb.
volunteer can be a noun
and verb
and a
yes
verb.
ตัวเดียวกัน
And in this case, we're using it as a verb. verb.
Speak.
Charles is the noun, he's the subject, but he volunteers is the verb.
Yes.
Describing what he's doing.
Right.
So if you wanted to use it as a noun,
My warranty.
to volunteer